is understanding. See everything of its own travel, of its own system, of its own operation cycle. Okay, touch any of the information lines, you can bring it in, all through the portal. See my hand formation? See the flux, see the time, see the body, see the light, see the shadows. It's all through time, isn't it? My hand's going through its own time, but it's going through its light, shades, and shadows, so its own flux. And as you go faster and faster and faster, everything starts to come in rotation, a circulation. Now that's where you start with your chakras and your Fibonacci's. Direct and redirect is the same. I go this way, you go that way, doesn't matter, right? I'm just fluxing, time fluxing, body fluxing, and that position of time capacitor of set traction location to its flux. Flux is very powerful because what you have to indicate is that you're shifting gears in your mind, imagination. That's right, guys. But you have to understand how to walk into space, fly into space, and levitate. So we're going to go into A, B's, and C's because your astral projections are coming in sight lines and signals, location, direct lines, and set travels that puts process communication system, how to go through your formulas, equations, into your settings. So location, system, and calculation. That's all communication is high centers. Now you have sacred geometries of yourself, knowing exactly how to see time format, time panels. So we're going to process 1, indications and grounds, process line position, locations, truth, and false narrative. All right. Truth of grounds. Okay. Okay. But you can see them in color. See the color, there's color there now, right? If I go slower, you can see what's going through light. See the portal opening up here. Don't look at this. Okay. Look at the portal. Look at the coloration. Look at the length, the bandwidth, the longitude, and the streaming. And that goes faster, 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 faster. It's going through 12 division lines of portals all at once, all through coloration of pattern. So that's going through its light metaphors of light and signals, isn't it? All through tractions. All right, so we got truth. Let's get in position of 4. Travels point lines of 3. Now, you can set truth in 4 set of calculations, but the center operation of you is always set lines of travel. That communicates in setting. The female cycle is a falsity system. And how you see the affirmation lines is the female cycle, that process calculates and setting, the process communication system that gets you in communication setting to allows how you use acceleration and Mach into illustrative mode, hyperdrive, right? It's the female cycle to the male cycle, the female polarity to the male polarity, right? So you can ground your systems, the truth lines, 4 centers of sequence or 3 centers of 4, doesn't matter. But what matters, the center never changes. It's the mind that changes everything in imagination. Okay? So let's see, we got 4 settings of grounds, 4 truths, 3 false. Okay? 4 truths, 3 false. All right? And there's going to be 4 centers and 4 centers of 4 line communication setting. Process lines position avoid itself into 2 travel. Okay? So that's 4 over 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 crossover. 2 lines of measure and scale of communication. Right? Now, this is just the basic grounds, how you see the longitude and latitude of streaming of a film strip that sets position, location, measure that projects your minds where you get a projection of yourself in 12 divisions. But you understand the truth and the false of its system, how it's set up through a line strip, which is how you see the things and set position of its gauging that processes you through advertising, how you formulate and simulate yourself in travel. Okay, so we go through this position. This is the window. This is the frame. Okay? Okay? So what you have to understand is a running film strip that keeps running its own system of operation, going from one frame to the next. Okay, that comes in picture frame. Okay, there's the film strip, right? Now, what makes it more real is bringing the film strip together. Process here, 1 length, okay, 1/3, 1/6, 1 setting, 1/4, and 1/3 in track locations. Different film strip, different design, but processing through supposition of operation. See that? See the lights go on and off? Okay. Doesn't matter how you look at it, but it's a running film strip of its own coloration lines of time frame. Okay? These are different bandwidths, guys. See? Every time I cross on my finger lines of light, it shows you track communication travel. All right? So, XT1000 in center, traveling through location. See? Going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, up and down, up and down, up and down, all at once, all at once. Proceeding in all position lines of travel. okay? All right, so it goes from this frame, and then it goes to this frame, and then it goes out through frame, okay? So that's the optical illusion, where it travels on its own system. Very powerful stuff. How you indicate that position, how you see in projection, guys, okay, all through the film strip design. All right, so if you want to stay in one box window frame, you'll override the signals and say calculations in directions in location, all right? You go through it again, analyze the signal, all right? So it's really powerful when you come to your skyline, sky grid, sky panel, sky net. Now this is where you can go through higher levels of platforms. It gets more complicated where you can come from outer space now, outer space to inner space, set lines, attractions, and locations, all right? It gets very complicated through film strip. Because remember, you're constructing from outside in, okay? Not inside out. Inside out, you're constructing, right? You're building, but you're platforming on the earth of outer space to inner space, okay? That's where it is in projection. That's how you see these things. Now we can cross angles, two lines of flux, inside rotation lines of grounds, not outside, inside. It stays with inside, not outside, okay? So there's perimeters outside, and there's perimeters outside lines of position to the eye itself. So we have to indicate the flux line, ground center location is gravitational lock screens that puts all communication converts in system all through travel. That process in position, how you fortitude location lights that process you indicates in sending the flux. Process line positions. Okay, so we got one operation, one channel, so position 3 over measure, 5 over scale. Okay, that converts a system in codification line ground centers into 1 in position of 3 and set lines of 4. Okay. That's the codification setting, 1, 3, 4, locked in signal, all right? So once you send the I division line course centers, the convergence system and flux line change the time capacity, the body capacity, change the time formats, the time replacements, the process communications at high calculation. Calculate and modify, ground set position operation line to travel. Converts the system calculation. All right, so get in position one of our lines, process lines in location grid, creating a location grid. Okay, so you're creating a high course centers in position of an outer shell and set lines of travel. Okay, there's the location grid. Now the process of the structure line, let's just get into 1/3 grounds, 1/6, 1/8, 1 pi, 1 generation lines, 1 center. Process lines of 2/4, 3/4, position of 4/4, crosses lines of angles, and 4 lines of flux and travel. Six calculation ground sense, work with the center operation, change mind, collaboration lines, imagination, recourse, position of Fibonacci, create the portal inside rotation of travel. There's the portal. Okay, now look at that. Working all together, inside and outside, outside and in. All in trajectory locations in the same directions all through setting. Okay, so portals are all based on 45 degrees. And the reason why they go through that, because they swivel back and forth, right? But you always are in the center. It's about you controlling your mind and what you're doing in trajectory, knowing what you're going through latitude, longitude, and what you're doing in bandwidth or streaming. Process how big the portal is going to be. Okay, in feet, in yards, in metric, in meters, in scale. Everything, it's got to be in balance. As you go through portals and set lines of travel. Okay, that's a portal. Now, in that setting line screen adaptations, going through stargates is more complicated now because you have to change the film strip of design, which changes the time formats, that change the time calculation system, that time edits space and platforms itself, that puts position location to its replacements, and line screen adaptation, the processing that gets you into position, that changes the longitude and latitude of streaming, that process in calculation setting, go through the seconds, minutes, and hours in frame. That puts all communications at convergence. So that's position lines of setting. We got 4 lines of travel. 1/6 over a screen, 1/5 over lines, 1/8 over center, and 1 ground centers and set lines of travel of communication. Working all together and set lines of measure. Okay? So, and this is just a portal to go through, the travel. Okay? There's so many different ways of making platforms of communication. All right? You work with inside, knowing exactly what you did, from outside travel communication. Okay? You look really close, you can see all formations of face recognition. There's the face right there. Stamp precedes everything. That's what protects the structure. That protects the portal. So nothing comes in, nothing comes out. So it's important to understand that's one portal sequence lines a setting through operation sequence. So that puts all communication in high centers of travel. Now, converting that position location lines, let's get in 42 locations. Let's just get into the cup. Process lines 2 structures, into 3 centers of calculation, 1/3 over graph, into rounds of communication. There's the cup, right? So as we're looking at the cup is in a portal line rotation and travel at 3 centers of grounds in sequence, okay? Travels on its own in circulation rotation, but it's also going through its coloration, right? As it's going through its coloration, it's going through time flats. Process lines of 4 indicates lines of grounds and set lines of travel. Okay, so it's coming as longitude and latitude of the streaming. Process position lines outside setting, inside rotations, in calculation outside rotation. Convert this system to another portal, open law in center location to a cycle and high generation screen location. In calculation, goes all together all at once. Struct division line centers, process in that line creation system all through calculation setting. Wormhole. Okay? So it's interesting how we see it through an evac. An evac is line screen adaptations. That's what wormholes do. They suck you in, right? So it's a order to line connection setting, process line position all through travel, process line direct line gamma centers, calculate modified trends over 2 lines, 3 lines, 4, and 6 lines of sequence lines of panel. That process indicates in setting into webbing lines, high operation screens, 4 to 2 location lights, and signal location lines of travel. So it puts all position lines of setting, how you seat lines of communication setting calculation, right? So I'm just showing you on so many different levels how to go through portals. At different levels, you 12 line rotation and astral projection yourself because it's at different frequencies. Portals are in temperature, barometer, and thermometer readings, and you have to understand how to see the formula and understand how to go through equation through just a box frame. Okay, just a box frame. Now you have to send the Fibonacci. Fibonacci of center of operation goes in this way. Okay, so process lines of flux over 6, 9 over settings position, 9 over 6, 6 over 9, 6 over 9, 6, 9 together. Operation lines of travel. Okay, set the circuits, and bedding over rotation, travels number 144 grounds. Platitude operation, earth rotation lines of setting sequence, and portals and set lines of calculation. Travels all together, all in one setting, right? 2 patterns, process line indication lines of flux. Travels all together, right? But you can see the coloration. It's amazing how they all work together. And one unification, one consciousness, it's awareness, all right? So it's important you understand the longitude and latitude of the streaming, what you're doing through your primers. Primers are extremely important because it center operates your Fibonacci and rotation lines of spin cycles that you go through in set position of operation. Okay, so it's set in that position of 45 angles, or set position of 2 angles, set position lines of 4 or 6 lines of angles and lines of travel. Okay, but it all works together in calculations, right? So you have to truly understand how the film strip is set up. Okay, know exactly what you're coming into, crossing wires, signature wires, heat signature wires, illumination wires. It's all dimensional wires itself that indicates everything of time capacitor, body capacitor, and flux capacitor time frame. 3 convergent system, all through traveling all together. One disappears, right? Which is going faster now. So the one that disappeared is now mocking 0. It's in 5 channels of operation screen in cloak and dagger. Okay, it's not there, disappeared. So setting lines of communication setting, process indicates lines of flux. The process calculates ground centers. 4 to 2 lights, that's getting transits over 2 pi. In position over 3, 6, 8, bending space. In positions of transits over screen. Okay? Travels all together. 3 centers, 4 set sequence outside center, inside operate, 3 centers of travel communication convergence. So balance calculation, triangulation, 2 centers of travel. In that indication lines and all calculators construct your system infrastructure that processes the outline rotation inside through pi of track communication. Travels in set lines of sync, interdimensional door, and operation lines of signal. There's the door, all right? Everything is a door is a portal. Everything total in position has a handle. Every handle has a process of indication system that goes through channels of screen adaptation of time formats that times calculates setting and time calculation screen locations. Indicates ground centers and structure of design, location of its building, and rotation lines of setting. So it's important you understand everything that you put yourself into is knowing how to construct everything inside that you're building, and you're basically seeing it in real time, which is outsetting, okay, which is the position that you're seeing through the objective. You create it from inside, okay, that you project outside the Earth, okay? So again, it takes 150,000 hours, okay, to build something in space. 3 beddings, the rotation lines of 4, 6, 8, and 12. 1 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6 scales, 4 altitudes, 0 gravity, process lines of 1 over sequence, 2 platforms, question over mark, directing lines 4 box frames, triangulation screens, adaptation and processing, directing line or center's time replacement, a correlation convergence, directing center operation lines setting, tubing line rotation of service and travel. Okay, working all together in one setting, right? Processing positions of time frame, working all together. So everything you do is one unit, one process, one subunit, right? So they never touch each other. And I told you that before. And it's all in the mind where they use their imagination. So the percentage of pi always goes up. Okay, so you have to understand I go from this into this in position of operation, right? But as you go through spinning, all you're creating is a portal of communication. Okay? So it starts to identify how you base yourselves and know exactly what you're doing through your settings as you go through your atmospheres, your hemispheres, your stratospheres, your biospheres, your Brownian spheres, your altospheres, your ionospheres, your correlation spheres, your track spheres, your generation spheres, your galaxy spheres. That's a lot of spheres to go through to travel. Okay? So it's all going through transits of betting. Okay, process here, 3 centers of calculation, right? Then you process here, okay, at 42 lines. Okay, you have that data 1, you got data 2, docking 3, docking 4. Set course centers, docking center sequence, docking lines of center, operations panel, process line, direct centers locations, and direction and location, right? Doesn't look like much, but knows exactly what it's doing all through travel. Now how to indicate that position of its console that navigates the system through its set calculation. Okay, process the position of 3 centers in rotation of grounds and sequence lines of calculation. Okay, so it's very powerful when you understand how to navigate your own setting of your own portals, but you have to understand the construct of 12 platforms, right? Process lines 0 gravity, process lines of position 1 gravity, 2 gravity, 3 gravity, 4 gravity, no gravity. All right, so that process unit triangulation. That indicates position of 2 zeros, 1 0, 1 operation, 1 0, over lines of 1 signal, process lines of 2, set position of 0 0 2, 3 centers of travel, directing ground centers, 0 position of 1 line cycle, high course centers. So I'm traveling through line centers. So I'm going through 9 position of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 travels of communication of 9 portals in sequence all at once in 1 rotation lines of grounds. There you go. Okay, that's 9 portals and 9 zeros of operation. Okay, and you can see it on all different levels in travel, working all together. So just to get the basic grounds, guys, is knowing how to set up the 12 line rotations of your film strips, the platitudes of locations, enter settings, interconnect, interlace, interrotate, and travel communication. Okay, everything has to be in sync, because it's off sync, you'll know it's off sync. So if your mind is projecting, your body's projecting. Your mind's off, your body's off. It's that simple. It's not complicated. But you're always ahead of schedule. The mind's done everything, which means the body's done everything. It doesn't make any sense if the mind's already done everything and the body has no clue what's going on. And that's the adjusting, that's the alignment that has to come into, so it understands how to go through its light fortitude and understand how to use its light metaphors and know exactly how to go through portals of stargates of measure that scales to balance everything that you go through your seconds, minutes, and hours in front of you. Okay? So processing through that indication system helps you to identify yourself and what you're doing in travel. Okay? How do I travel through 4? Well, I can set 4s on this lines and settings. There's 4, there's 4, right? So bending space 3 centers. Okay? Bending space position of 4 centers. And travel, right? So you look at the platform and set lines of travel. Transits over 1, 2, 3, and 4 set in operation. Travel point lines of ground 3 indicates outsetter. Set course and outset line communications of travel. Indirect lines of grounds in sequence. In calculation, right? So what is that process and position lines of calculation grounds? Says communication height, position of its operation, travels in point lines of graph, calculate and modify line condition setting. All right, a parrot. See? It could be a dove. It could be a duck. It could be anything it wants to be, a travel. So I'm just showing you how you can modify your system, how you travel through anything that you create through modification grounds. That's all calculated to modify. You construct location lines, levels and signals, perspective, how you see point graphs. Point graphs of 2, center of operation, 0, 0, or set position of 0, 1, indicate lines plus over 0, indicate negative point lines of 0, set course centers 1 over 0, 1 over 2, 2 over 3, 3 lines of 4, 4 lines of 5, 5 lines of 6, and 7 over travel. Okay, that's all through portals. Setting here, setting here, setting here, setting here, setting here, setting here, all together. See, working all together. Okay, that's how it works. So it's really interesting how we modify these things and put this in synchronicities, right? Knowing exactly how to come into that through string theory. Process lines of 1 indication, travels in position of 2, 1 to 2, right? It's already gone, so 1 already knows identify through 2, and 2 already knows how to identify to 1. So it's the objective view from outside seen from inside of travel. And that position line is set from inside to outside of travel. Okay, that's how they communicate. All through pi. Instant travel, there's a 144 flux, a teleportation screen, adaptation of travel. Okay? Working all together, right? Working all together is a unification cycle that puts you in process how you use this in information sitting. Now you go through your taxi runways or that position location that process your system, what you're doing through your system. Knowing exactly how to go through box frames, box frame triangulation, patterns, operation lines of sequence, high operation line grounds, high travels and direct lines of ground communication positions, high screen adaptation settings, all through Stargate measure. Okay? So platitude box frames, platitude panel frames, okay, set conversion setting into positions, and your set lines and travel calculation setting to your simulation. See? Working within the center. Okay? But it's very important you understand how to use a truth and false narrative. Okay? Understanding your film strip, how it's set up. Okay? In a primer, guys. There's the primer. And that's all I'm working with. So triangulation here, box here, triangulation here. Okay, work together, right? So there we go. There's the truth, and there's the false narrative, and there's the running film strip that's running inside your system, inside the mind, working all together. Okay? So you got a body frame going here, seeing yourself going to different levels, different astral projections, different travels. But you never leave the center. The center is always in the brain of the center because it's already done everything. So if the mind's done everything, so is the body. That's what you have to go through projector itself, okay? But that's what your body goes through, okay? Okay, that's what it's doing. All right, so as it's going through that, it's going through different platforms now of travel, okay? But they're always going in the same direction of thoughts, action, emotions. So they all go together. They have to because they connect to each other because you're connecting yourself. You come back to yourself through travel. You don't come back to different lines of thoughts, action, emotions until you identify your bedding system. Your longitude, your latitude, and your streaming is understanding how to see that through the vault and knowing that enabled that process you in position how to use that in calculations. Okay? So it's important you understand that. They are on different platforms of travel, of time formats that put you in an algorithm and set lines of communication. All right? And your body is feeling this. This is your body and what's going on right now. That's your body seeing everything that's going on in its mind that's projecting everything. That's going through its time frame to set position. So everything goes through its own portal. Okay? Everything goes through its own portal of astral projection of seconds, minutes, and hours and frame. So as it goes in that, it goes in its torical fields, it goes in its particle accelerator, and set lines of communications. Right? And then it travels all together in set lines of operation, setting and sync, and set calculations. And they platitude in all position, location, setting, all through constellation. Okay, face recognition. That's 7 recognitions of faces. Platitude is 7 panels, 7 operation lines of grounds. Platitude operation, ground centers in sequence. Puts all position, location, and setting. Okay, 7 faces of recognition. All in travel. All at once. Okay. Remember, everything's all put together. And once you understand that through synchronicities, then you understand that through string theory, right? You just have to understand how the body just has to understand the alignment of what's going on through its formula and through its equation is knowing how to really center itself through anything that it goes through. It's important you understand how to get in that communication setting to know exactly what a box frame is through its formula equation. What is a triangulation through its formula equations? So let's start in line ground centers into 1/6, okay? That's half pipe. So we're going to have 3 corners in one cycle, okay? Process in position half line cycle and set lines of travel. So that's 1/3, 1/6, 1/8, 1/12. Okay, right there. There's the half moon. Center operation line grounds, bending space. In 4 angles, and set calculations. Grounding sequence, longitude, latitude of streaming, catapult, and line rotation lines of grounds. So I'm showing you how you indicate the lines of signals that process your positioning echo, sonar, line rotation, sending lines of travel of indication system, all through flux and mapping setting. Processing that position lines of travel, chase correlation system and calculate modified longitude and latitude. Swinging in motion, directing ground centers, flux over screen. Platitude operation line ground centers, and flux over line rotation. Travels in position lines of calculation, 0.44 flux. Okay, time measure and scale is process line and position to location. So let's go again for the box. Now the box in between has a center operation sequence, has a downshift lines of anomaly. This is where you start shifting gears, all right? So it's understanding here, and understanding here, and understanding here, here, and here. There's your simulation. Simple to understand these things, all right? Now you just have to truly understand how to go through a clocking system and foundation and setting through the Fibonacci of center that operates everything as center operation. Okay, that rotates everything, how it sees the calculation setting from 6 and 9 to this way, and 6 and 9 to this way, and travel. There's the portal together, right? So one goes one way, one goes the other way, okay? One goes this way, one goes the other way. There's the portal. So they work together in a formation setting that grounds their signals into 45 line signals into one flux over screen. There's the portal, okay? So it's about understanding how to modify the A, B's, and C's. A equals lines of D. Okay, so that's just the training wheels. Understand the guidance. That's how D equals lines of E. Cross lines of F. Correlates back to A. And set traction, so communication, right? So it's really interesting too, because what you have to understand is you're constantly changing the sacred geometries of your system that's unifying your settings, how you operate your cycles through your calculate and modify, that puts you in astral projections of you in different lines of travel. Okay, so it's important you understand that. When you open up a portal, you're going through the hydraulics now. The hydraulics are this way, or the hydraulics are this way, and there's the portal instead of an operation opening up. So as the portal opens up, it just, you go inside the portal, right? You're inside the portal now. So it overrides you, overcasts you, you're inside the energetic bubble. So now you're in the metric meter, now you go through a tunnel, but you're in the center, you stay in the center. Okay, what makes it more real is the optical illusion, how you see yourself in different levels of your imagination, going through different tunnel defense lines of operation, going in all different directions, 8 different directions all at once, but you're always in the center. You never ever leave the center, guys. It's your imagination that does that. Okay, so I'm going through 8 line rotations all at once, right? Different locations, but always in the center operation. So I'm in the centers, understand that line communication setting, all directions this way, all directions this way, and this way. So you go through pi, different lines of pi, different lines of slices of pi, and set lines of communication. There's a Stargate. Okay, and then you set position here, bending space. Now you can go through transits and settings. Process lines of 0, set process lines of 1, triangulation over 2, over pi, triangulation of 3, times 4, times sequence, times pi. Okay, start with that calculation. Now, what you're all doing is you're modifying the longitude and latitude of bandwidth, what you're coming in streaming lines. Electrical line grids, electrical line panels, electrical lines of interference. Process lines, indication lines of calculation, ground centers. Transits over screen, inside, outside, rotation lines of setting, operation lines of travel. Stargate screens, 42 locations and directions, and location lines of calculation grounds. Operation platitude into all course centers, elongated screen, location setting, and convergence lines of travel. Set operation lines, high center position, operation lines of grounds. Set communication convergence into operation lines of sequence and set calculation. Platitude lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 dimensional lines of space at 45-degree angles. There's the Stargate. Okay, all through arrows of indication. So, modifying everything you see, you can turn anything to a portal. But you've got to understand your formula equations through your A, B's, and C's and your 1, 2, 3's. You got your astral projections of that. Now you got to understand how an astral projection has to go through a portal. So it has to understand its mind of collaboration and understand the body of its alignment. So it knows exactly what it's doing. It's going through vortex, time leap, or time jump, or setting up jump scars. But it's always going to feel that emotion. It's always going to feel that evac. It's always going to feel that acceleration. Your cells are going to be constantly going through different modifications of different set travels, okay? Which is your information bits, okay? Not of all of them are in the same position. They're all in different time frame, guys. They're in their own intelligence. Every cell in your body is a different galaxy alignment that you go through flux, time capacitor, body capacitor. But you're processing all lines all at once, okay? But you're never touching anything, okay? But you're all modified in set position of unification system, which is never separable. You're always inside, understand how to construct the set position through the information structures and projecting everything outside your Earth, okay? Projecting to space is always a continuous force, internal to external force, that you're always creating in your imaginations, that keeps you in a modification, that keeps you moving in rotation lines of setting, that keeps you in the operation system to the optimum, that puts you in positions to your degrees that you go northwest, south, and east. Okay, now again, you have the platitude, what you're doing with your longitude, latitudes, and that lines the screen adaptation setting. So this helps you identify how to really get position, how to create a Stargate and set calculation. All right. So there you go. That's just through indications of arrows. So that's true to extend how you see the pie. Okay, that's a portal. And how you see the center through time. Okay. And understand how to go through pi and setting, and how to coordinate a communication setting to travel, and how you go through position of platforms through solar sail. All right. So it's a continuous force that you use in your imagination that never ever runs out of your system. It's always, always, always expanding itself, creating new levels, creating new travels, creating new operations of new technology. And that's what you're going to be processing through, because you guys are going to be talking so fast in your minds. You got to keep up what's going on with your body as it's going through its alignment, as it's going through real travels through the cells, a modification, a soul generation. Right? So that comes into repercussions, setting, calculation, ground centers, and reconfiguration. Percentage over screen, 50-cent mark, 50-cent travel, 50-cent line signals into 50-cent position of portal, set course centers, 50 line grounds, and 50 atmospheres in travel. Okay, all 50, right? But if you look really close, look what you create. Flux capacitor, okay, and set calculation. There's the flux, and that's all 50 mark. Now 50 itself is the oscillation system to set lines of positional levels that wind cycles to travels through the oscillation system wind patterns. Processing positions all through time flux, time calculation setting, all through square roots, all through square pi, in position as film strip, that line signal in case of travel. Works all together in set calculation. All right? So that's what you have to understand now. As you go through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, it's building the construct. So let's say you get 4 ones, all right? So you got 2 ones, that's 4, right? Okay, but you're in the center, okay? There's your flux capacitor, time capacitor, body capacitor, right there. So you go like this, you go like this, you go like this, and then you go like this, and you downshift lines of line. There's your flux, all through ones, 2, 4 lines of ones. So that's 0, 0, process lines, that's two truths over false negative, right? Because they're going to change the bandwidth. That changes the streamings and set calculation setting, processing positions all through set position of wind cycles that change the patterns and recognition of time frame, okay? How you see through an open window, how you see travels, how you see directions through echo and sonar, okay? So that's what you have to truly understand, how the film strip is set up, and knowing exactly how you go through webbing system, how you go through different lines of line strips, magnetic strips, force direction of time strips, high positions, magnetic force, electrical in-force, high position impulse, electrical impulse, high position magnetic line course centers, calculating ground centers, static interference, sonic interference, magnetic interference. It's all positional location and galaxy alignment that you pattern through in lacing lines of communication and line signals. 3 centers of travel, 3 beddings over cross line condition setting, 42 locations. Ground centers, operation lines of sequence. There's the portal, okay? So everything is created through a portal. Everything's measured and scaled through a portal, okay? As long as you understand you're always in the center operation of yourself, okay? All you're using your imagination, you're expanding out the longitude and latitudes of streaming. And that's what you're creating in set position. So portal here, portal here, portal here, Stargate here, portal here, pattern here, rotation. But it all comes in all settings, right? So it's incredible when you start recognizing what you're doing as you go through lines of settings, different portals of communications. So this really helps you identify your 4 clocking centers, right? Set grounds, 2 panels, and ceilings of rotation, and you in the center operation. Now, I really want you guys to watch Space Discoveries, time zones, okay? which is season 1, episode 4. Okay, there's the clockings. Clockings of grounds, clockings of patterns. Okay, 2 pillars. There's the 2 pillars of patterns. Process lines of 4 indicates lines of 4 center calculations. Tubing line in the center is a center line, operation line sequence, and galaxy of alignment and rotation. Travels point lines of grounds, a sequence, line communication setting. Tubing, operation lines, energize. Set calculation, all right? So you can go through this portal, or you can go through this portal, or you can go through this portal. So you can go through 4 portals all at once, but you're always in the center. So it looks like you're going through 4 different portals, but you're only going through 4 different directions in the same direction, where your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions are going, right? So process in that position is not just the thoughts, action, emotions, it's you in center. So that's 4. There has to be 4. There has to be grounds, there has to be 2 panels, and there has to be a ceiling, because it puts position, location, setting to put you in calculation system, how you come into your own setting, on your own operation setting of your sim. Okay? Because everything sets position of your operation setting instruction, your simulation. You always have to be in the simulator to a simulation. And when you're creating thoughts, action, emotions, they're going in the same different mind centers by processing and set calculation in the same position of processing. So thoughts, action, emotions equals center, which is you, right? Now, that puts all calculation to modify and set lines of travel. 1 course centers, process lines of T, E, calculation lines. Tech, right? Your technology comes in your system. Modification of tech, high line division lines of tech, portals, communication lines of tech, tech interference, line condition, technologies of tech. It all processes you and indicates in the system how you see the modification of you through your mind, imagination setting that puts you in that position to its operation. Highways. Let's get in that signals. 3 centers of travel, 6 lines of measure. Okay? You're here, okay, ready to go into the highway, okay? But this is what's going on is that position, right? So they're already gone through their mind. They already know what portal they're going to go through. You've got to be way ahead of schedule. You got to be 12 steps ahead, okay? So you're 12 steps ahead. You're going to go. If not, you're going to collide into the system of its vessel and create a traffic jam. That's that calculation, right? So it's thinking on top of your head, knowing exactly what's already there, because you've already been there through astral projection. It's much easier for the body to align that. If the body is not in the conception of balance, it won't understand the system. So what you have to modify through, that everything's done through the mind, which means everything's done through the mind, that means everything's done through the body. There's the mothership. And once you send the mothership, you are the mothership itself that comes into that position of balance. So that's how it works with the highways, guys. I know exactly how to see fortitude in set lines of lights, in position lines of dark lines of coding, in operation lines of sequence, location of your highways, in lines of calculation setting, merging in with the traffic, not just, whoa, hesitate. No, don't do that. You hesitate here, you're hesitating there in the body. And remember, you're ejecting everything you're seeing on Earth. So whatever you do here affects you in real time. And that brings in the projection. That's what brings in the film strip that you construct here. It's knowing what's already done here. That process is already what's already here done. Your whole body's done from head to toe. Now you have to modify through astral projection through a portal. So it's much more easier for you to identify that. So the body knows exactly where your astral projections are going every second, every minute, every hour of its day. Okay? Through astral projection of itself. That's the astral projection. Okay? Right there. Right? So you see where you're going to be next. Right? It's there. Then it's going to go here. Right? Okay? But you're always in the center. You don't move. It's the film strip you're looking at of them through astral projection of the mind. Right? So you're seeing the running film strip of them in real time. Okay? So it's really interesting when you look at that, and you are the center of everything that you go through. And as you're going through the astral projections, your 24-hour day is done through astral projection of itself. That's it. Right? Your 24 hours is done. And then you go into the next day, and the next day, and the next day. But the next day is no day, because you've already done it. So the more you get out of time frame, the more you come into your time frame and no time frame. Because the one thing you have to understand is the astral projection of itself goes to all timelines all at once. And that goes through the seconds, minutes, and hours, minutes, and seconds. Now you have to modify these things because it's 12-line conversion system of 12-dimensional space that goes in your provision lines that's installed in your system and projection itself that you have to modify through. So always in that position, think 12 steps ahead every time. Okay, so that 12 steps ahead okay, you're good to go, but your astral projection is 24 steps ahead. Okay, so you're 24 steps ahead. Okay, your astral projection is 48. That's totally normal, right? So you're catching up. And once you're at 144 flux, you're on the balance of everything in flux lines of communications to a time capacitor, body capacitor, and position at all levels and track location. All in clocking, one in balance, all through operation lines of sequence. So it's kind of like the body catching up to its alignment every time it goes through a different time frame. And as it goes through a different time frame, it's going through a different algorithm. And as it's going through a different algorithm, it's going through a different portal. Okay, same process, just different formats at different portals that the astral projections are going through. So every second that you go through, every time you go through 12 steps, okay, you're going through a portal. Okay? So you're lining yourself and you're going through a set position, all right? So we're going to convert the system and set it. We're going to go through an evac. We're going to feel what that feels like being sucked in. All right. So 1, 2, 3, evac line course centers, time centers sequence, time calculation, time screen. Whoa! I felt that vac. It's like a suction, right? That's an evac pulling you in, right? So it's like this. Your body's like this. You have to know exactly the position that you're putting yourself into. You're like this. Okay, that's you now. Okay, from that to this. So you're being pulled back in set position. That's an evac. And that you really feel that. Okay? Okay, so let's go time center and operation line signals. Let's go gravity line course center, spin cycle line ground centers, and position and processing. All right. So we're going to feel like we're going through a swirl. Your mind's going to go really slow, but your body's going to go really fast. 1, 2, 3. Whoa. It's like, whoa. So it's like this. Okay, your body's going like this now. Okay. So it's really interesting how we go through that line. So that's time formatting your system at time flux. Okay. So that puts you in 4 to 2 locations, how you go in line directions, all 4 directions all at once, right? North, west, south, and east. Okay. Circulation here, and around set lines of center of operation. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to go through time lump. Okay. Now time jump is basically going from leapfrog, one platform to another platform, like, all right, so we'll go through box frames, triangulation in one position. So you're going to time jump and you're going to feel your body time jumping, all right? Here we go. Set position 1, 2, and 3. Whoa. See? That's time jump, right? Time vortex is like time jumping, but it's time leaping, but it's vortexing all at once, okay? 1, 2, 3, set position. Whoa, there you go. Time jump, time vortex. So it's really interesting how you come through 3 platforms and position astral projection itself that modifies your setting and time frame. Okay, so I'm just showing you how powerful what your body can do when you process that through indication is fully get aligned, know exactly how to balance this out every time you get in that position. So you know exactly what you're creating. Are you creating portals? Are you creating stargates? Your body needs to know the adjustment. Okay, so it can process it much easier that it's always constructing inside and projecting everything outside of its earth that you see in real time. You press play, there's the running film strip of the optical illusion. It's very powerful when you guys come into indications. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to set up a jump scar. That's a jump scar, all right? You're going to travel 3 centers of travel, okay? The position of 1, and 4 to 2 lines of 6 over portal of sequence. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so a time jump 3 centers. Inside rotation, outside travel. Okay. So it's really interesting how you go through triangulation box and set calculation, right? Absolutely amazing how you go through that on the lines of flux of travel. So it's important you understand what the body is doing because it's adjusting its own formula, its own equation. So your body's here in the center, okay? But you have to understand what you're doing in your mind, where your astral projections are just setting up film strips of design, okay? So you feel your body going this way, you feel your body rotating this way, you feel your body going through the circulation, or you feel your body operating in cycles, or you see it in wind cycles, wind cycles, wind cycles, wind cycles, and wind cycles, a travel, right? So your body just has to be consciously aware of what it's going through its wind patterns, the process of oscillation sitting, wind pattern line operation line set calculation system, as the body itself turns into an actual portal. That's right, guys. Your body's the landmass of the oversoul. So you feel like edging, like, oh, I just feel like I turned myself into a portal. Or I feel like I turned myself into a landmass, right? Or I turned myself into a map. That is your body. And then you bring your programs in, right? There's your program, there's your program, okay? So that's what your body becomes. It's this vessel, nothing else, nothing more. Now, once a body becomes a communication convergence, a balance, a set lines of travel, it starts to indicate positional locations, how to create portals around that, and jump scars and set that stance proceed location setting out through calculation system. There's your jump scars. So you can plot it to here, 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 and back there in tractions, right? Because it's all set up through your earth or rotation lines of grounds. Okay? There it is. Boom, done. So I showed you so many different ways of what your body feels in real time. And each cell is changes the modification setting to its flux. Time capacitor settings. So let's say 20,000 seconds per second, 40,000 line scales, in position of 5 sequence, and convergence of atmosphere lines of change in direct locations of portal, right? Now, that means I connected with 3 cells, 2 protons, and 1 atom to get this, right? There's the film strip that set lines of travel, guys, okay? So it's easy how you get into the formulas, equations, and how many lines of setting am I using 3 cells, and it gives it proton, position of processing lines of atmosphere lines, the core centers, communication convergence system, and infusion, directing ground centers and cold infusion, hot infusion, and rotation lines of ground since that position of particle lines or atom line rotation. Whoa, right? That's the observation. Now, if I set the tone lines, 1, 2, 3, you guys will feel these cells rotate this cycle. Whoa, feel the circulation rotates in the Gaussian alignment? So everything has a movement channel. Now, processing that indicates the system. You know exactly here's the percentage of the brain. Is that at 50%? Is it at 60%? Is that at 70%, 80, or 100%? 100% is 0. 0 calculation, 0 grounds. Pi generation lines. It's that position in the calculation setting. You got to work your 0 gravity to 144 flux. After that, you're above the system. And that, you're below the system, 144. So you have to modify your clocking system, a balance of communication. Okay? And you do that in the set lines of calculation center. Now, in that center location of center, the process of that position location is 4 indication lines of projections all at once. 4 settings, 4 calculations, 4 travels. North, west, south, and east. Okay? That's 4 astral projections view. So they're going through their own portals in set lines of sequence. And you're just observing everything of the body and what's going on in set position in real time. Okay? So they are in their own film strips of their own design, guys, that you have to modify through. Okay? That goes to the truth and false narratives of their systems, all through calculation, all through setting. Okay? That's all it is. It's a running film strip. And when you see that, you trust yourself enough, knowing exactly what's going on here, here, and here, that 4 hours is already done in set lines of travel. All right? 4 hours in sequence. Okay? That's Earth line setting. That's 4 years in travel. Okay? That I construct in lines of travel communications, working from 1, 4 to 2 light, ground centers, line communication. Line signals, dedication over line direct, directing direct lines, high side position, direct over lights, operation line sequence, light over line rotations, and dark line communication of balance. Okay? So it's amazing how we codify our set lines of position. Time centers, L-line screens, flux over screen lines, half moon over travel. There's a half moon, right? See, modifying these things is to understand how to see it through schematics, understand how to see it through its drawing that gets you in position lines of balance. Knowing exactly everything you're looking at as you're processing everything at position lines of settings, that your platitude and operation lines is nothing but a portal of communication that you're looking at in tractions. Okay, that's all it is. It looks at you and comes back at you in its position of operation. Okay? And then you set out more longitude and latitudes through pi. Okay? So it's important you understand how to go right? And you go faster, 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 faster. You're going faster in the mind. And if you go faster in the mind, you're going faster in the body. You're going faster in the body, you're going faster in the soul. Then you're all alignment all at once, right? So when you're in alignment all at once, you're coming in 4, 4, 4, 4. You're coming in 3, 3, 3, 3. You have to understand what comes in equals lines of center. What comes in equals lines of center. What comes in position of 5, 5, 5 equals lines of center. There you go. Right? Bounce, bounce, bounce of portals and stargates. Right? So it's really interesting too, because you're always processing yourself, always in the center of operation, everything in setting. processes into 3, platforms of 3, platforms of 4, platforms of 4, and processes the 3 lines position of 5 platforms as that position lines of travel. Okay? But you're always in the center of operation. Okay? Which brain basically puts you in the capacity. But as soon as you change your imagination, that's where it changes everything. It's literally, that's all it is. It's balancing what you're doing with your thoughts, actions, and motions and making sure they go in the same directions so it creates a dimensional or solar sail. Okay? Into webbing system and settings and travel. Okay? And then you can see yourself in position holding the sail, going in the directions of its water that contains its setting. Okay? Holding the solar sail and going in that same direction. As you're looking in all directions all at once, as you're going through all different portals, but all different directions. But you're going in all lines of expanding. You're expanding here, 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 here. Then you go to that, you go to the next level. Here, 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 here. So each level you go up to, you're expanding different portals and stargates. You're expanding yourself. Not through expansion. Okay? Expanding different platforms. Expanding out through a sprinkler. Okay? That's what you have to modify through, and that's how you come in your own constructs first. So you identify how everything is built inside, and everything is projected outside your Earth, all right? Platform here expanding, here, 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 and here, right? So this is what it is, expanding. Start with this, expand out, okay? Then you go to the next level, okay? Then you go to the next level, okay? Then you go to the next level. Expanding out, guys. That's all you're doing. Expanding out your system all through travel. Very powerful stuff through solar sail. Right? Solar sail here, you're platted to here. Okay, so you're transiting and you're expanding yourself in all different levels of space and time. Seeing it in all directions all at once. Where am I going to go now? You know? So everything's set up in a portal. Portal, 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 portal. Portal, 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 portal acceleration all at once. Okay? That's a lot of expanding your system and travel, guys, through string theory. Okay? Very powerful stuff, interactions. Okay? So we'll stop there. There's a lot going on now, eh? So I'll see you guys in 5 inside travel. Okay? Adios.